use CLIL. That's what I understand. So that was what I understand. But could you explain why CLIL is kind of trendy in Europe?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't generalize quite like that. I think that different countries in Europe have introduced CLIL for different reasons. Because obviously, if you're CLILing in English, for example, you can CLIL in any language. But if you're CLILing in English in Europe, then if you live in the Netherlands, socio-linguistically, socio-culturally speaking, English is very present in Dutch society, and so you wouldn't use it for the same reasons as you would in Spain, for example, where the general level of English is not that good because it's not so present in society, and so I think that the Dutch would introduce CLIL, for example, maybe for more academic reasons, for fine-tuning academic English, whereas the Spanish will, as you say, probably introduce it in order to have more contact time with the target language, which is English. So I think you've got to be slightly careful when you say, I think that different countries will introduce it for slightly different reasons, and they don't necessarily introduce it for reasons of language learning. I mean, CLIL really arose not in the language teaching context, it arose in the subject teaching context. In 1995 the acronym was invented in Finland by an Australian guy, David Marsh, but David Marsh didn't particularly mean it to be soft CLIL English teaching. He meant that this is it's subject teaching through the medium of English. That's where the language advantage allegedly comes in, if you do it properly. But I don't think that the objective was ever to learn English.
Oh, you mean that actually each country has different objects to...
I think they do now, yeah. And I think that Japan would have different reasons for introducing CLIL to Spain or whatever. I mean, there may be broadly, you could probably identify the reasons. There wouldn't be that many, but I think that to describe CLIL as principally as something to improve your English is a mistake. I think it's principally in order to study subject content through the medium of another language, in this case English. So there are two questions. Does it teach the subject matter as well or better? And does it increase the ability in English? And my answer would be yes, to both of those.
As well as or better.
As well as or better, yes. Obviously, if you teach the curricular content through another language, you can't change the curricular content. If you're studying biology in Japan, then it's the Japanese curriculum. If you're going to do it in English, you have to respect the conceptual content of the curriculum. The only thing you can change is the procedures, the methodology, and you can't. The language is the language as well.
Well, as you repeat or emphasize in the class that language is a vehicle and CLIL is a vehicle. I forgot. Vehicle.
Absolute language is a vehicle.
Language is a vehicle.
That's right.
So
that's right.
That's why.
I think so.
As well as or better, you can use CLIL as a vehicle. That language as a vehicle.
Yeah. I also think you should do that in ELT, but that's another question.
Yes.
That's soft CLIL, but that's another question. I think that CLIL has moved across to the ELT world, the language teaching world, inevitably. We've talked about soft CLIL and hard CLIL on the course, but originally the intention was hard CLIL.
Okay, I understand. Thank you very much. Can I move to the second question? Okay. What is the difference of teaching materials between CLIL and EFL or ESL?
That's a good question.
Yes.
Yeah. The difference in teaching materials. Well, I think that if you're writing materials for language teaching purposes, you're going to give them to a language teacher in order to teach in the language curriculum, then your priorities are obviously linguistic.
It's
it's a stupid thing to say, but it's true. Yeah, your objectives are linguistic. They're linguistically driven, and your assessment criteria obviously are also linguistically described and driven. And if you teach CLIL, let's look at harder CLIL to begin with, then I think that your objectives change. They're focused more on, obviously, on the conceptual content, because if you're teaching biology through whatever language. Your objective is that they learn biology. It's a very simple point. But of course, along the way, you're trying to make the students more aware of the impact of language on that subject, the impact of language on their ability to do that subject well, in any subject. Basically, we're talking about the impact of language on cognition. Swain, Genesee, all the Canadian immersion people talk about this. You know, Swain, Genesee, Met, all of them.
Swain is Mark.
Yeah, Swain and Genesee. Yeah, all the Canadian immersion people have written about this. You know, and Bloom talks about this anyway in the 1950s. And it's nothing new in that sense. Bullock talked about this in the Bullock report in 1975. He said that, you know, all teachers are language teachers. Well, yes and no. I mean, so the difference in your materials design, the different way that you set about it, is that when I write CLIL materials, whether they're soft or hard, even if it's for the English language curriculum, I still try to make those materials look as though the objectives are conceptual and procedural. We've talked about these 3 content dimensions.
Yes.
I don't always want my English language materials to look like English language materials. They look as if they've got conceptual objectives. Well, they actually have got conceptual objectives, and I do believe actually that you can assess content in a language curriculum. And as you said before, you can still use the language as the vehicle. The problem is in the language curriculum, it's the other way around. The content is being used as a vehicle for the language objective. And I think that can be problematic. I think it can be quite boring for the students. They realise that the content is not important. It's only there as a slave for the linguistic objective.
So you mean that it is opposite?
Yes, I think it's the opposite.
ESL text, the content is a vehicle, and language is a kind of dominant.
No, that's right, yeah, the content is the vehicle, absolutely. But it's a problem. If the content is the vehicle, it's a problem because, you know, for 3 pages you're going to talk about global warming, but you're not really interested in global warming. You're only interested in the second conditional. And little by little, the students realise this. So they realise the content isn't actually important. So what do we talk about in English language lessons or whatever? We don't talk about very much really. We're concerned with not only grammatical accuracy and language accuracy. We're also just, our only objective is really the learning of the language. It's a strange objective to have. I don't understand why people would only have a language objective.